where there is no vision, the people perish. And then the book of Luke teaches that when the blind lead the blind, both of them fall in the ditch. Now, we can offer metaphors to suggest that Trinidad and Tobago is not just perishing, but perishing in the ditch, which suggests that vision has been absent. And yesterday I noticed, I was looking at the British media, the Prime Minister of England, David Cameron, as well as the Chief of Police for South Yorkshire, both gave apologies. I mean, this is the Prime Minister in the Parliament, for an incident that took place 23 years ago, the Hillsborough incident with the Liverpool football team, where close to 100 fans were killed. Now, I mean, I've read about that a number of times over the years, and how the fans were blamed. New research has suggested that it was the police to be blamed. Now, the political maturity to go before an entire country and offer an apology and say, we were wrong, based on the official information that we gave to the state. I think that our, and I dare say our regional leadership, is yet to elevate to that degree of maturity to be able to recognize and admit that they had made errors and mistakes in the governance of the country and are willing to demonstrate the humility to correct that. I think we have a culture of cover-ups.
Culture of cover-ups, is it simply that we are politically immature?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, this Prime Minister has had a couple of occasions where she has actually gone to Parliament and apologized for mistakes that they've made. Rashmi Ramnarayan being one of the biggest blunders of this particular administration, and she's taken responsibility, apologized for it. This particular situation, again, it's another one, this Section 34. But we have to understand the political culture. You know, on the 10th of October, 1964, Dr. Eric Williams, in a public meeting, said that he was going to reinstate Dr. Patrick Solomon in the cabinet after he had resigned because there had been an expose about his involvement with the release of a relative from a police cell. This was very early in our independence, 2 years after we became independent, 10th of October 1964. And his attitude was, who did not like it could leave the country. So that is the context in which our independent nation was born. If you didn't like what the Prime Minister was going to do, you could leave the country. That was immortalized in song. Who don't like it could get to hell out of here. And therefore, we have to understand our nation was born with these attitudes to power. And this is why I was raising the issue of the post-plantation society, the way in which we have handled power. So we've come a long way from that to points now where prime ministers are apologizing for errors that they've made in government.
Okay, and then I would take the argument and flip it on the next side and say that I expect a government to run the country in a proper, effective manner. I do not expect every Monday morning there will be some debacle to clear up, some point when you have to apologize at some point. Like, I understand that, and initially I thought, great, a different style of leadership. Thank God for consultations, thank God for these things are happening. But then you become wary as a population. If you are losing your confidence in these systems because you see every Monday morning something happens, and you're right, if the story wasn't aired or wasn't published by Denise Wren on the Sunday Guardian, where would we have been? What exactly would have transpired now, today?
And you're absolutely right, and that is why we have elections. And that is why Trinidad and Tobago is a functioning democracy, having had 5 changes of government. Because ultimately, the people of this country are the ones who are going to exercise the ultimate verdict. We don't have an opportunity in between. If the government is continually going to be apologizing and apologizing and apologizing, then clearly there's a level of ineptness that is being manifested. So it's all well and good to adopt the moral stance that you will apologize, but if there are so many repeated apologies on and on, then obviously we're talking about something else. We're talking about being inept.
Skills and competency. Do our leaders possess them? Are they the reason that we are losing trust in the institutions?
I think there's a lot of room for improvement with respect to skills and competencies of leadership, which are really quite different from those that you can acquire from a book. You know, the ability to self-reflect and to think about the bigger picture, to think creatively and innovatively. Those things we have to mold and grow amongst our populace. So even while there is an apology, if we know that there is something wrong, an apology is an acknowledgement. Acknowledgement is simply not enough. After the acknowledgement must come some sort of transparency with respect to what went wrong and a commitment to renew.
Commitment to renew, transparency, and fixing it. And now we've reached the interesting part, David. You're on the ground. Are they fixing it?
Well, no.
In a short answer.
But Dr. Gani said something very interesting, and it brings me back. I think there's been a culture of the abuse of power in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, historically, in the early 1880s, we had the Canberlay riots. 1884, we had the Husay riots. 1903, they burnt the Red House, the water riots. 1919, there were the waterfront riots. 1937, the oil field riots. Then 1970, Black Power Revolution. 1990, Muslimin coup. Now, many people around 2010 were beginning to theorize that, well, every 20 years in Trinidad and Tobago, there is some kind of social reaction.
But I sometimes think we're a docile population. I sometimes think that we don't fight for anything. I look at the history.
That's a lot of revolutions.
True.
And I think right now what's happening, and as a matter of fact, I think ever since 1990, governments have been wary that the population is on the edge. And there have been a number of occasions, if we check back, probably at least 6 or 7 of them, moments where governments were on the edge with some kind of expectation that something might happen. And I think there's been almost a management of the tolerance of the general public just below the point of where there'll be another social movement explosion. And I think the government constantly, diligently monitors and scrutinizes the sentiments of the people just to not take it past that boiling point. But leadership has been abusive in the authority that they've been entrusted with, and I think they're mindful of that. And so there's like a measurement scale to see exactly how angry the masses are. And so I think that is very carefully managed.
Managing not only expectations, which is a few minutes till we wrap this interview. Dr. Gani, crisis in leadership, the institutions, the Arthur Lockjaw Graduate School of Business, that report highlighted lack of trust in politicians, lack of trust in the institutions, a general, very skeptical population. How do we move forward from here?
Well, I think a lot of the skepticism has come from the fact that there is a lot of talk that goes on about people being corrupt and all kinds of things happening, but the strike rate on conviction is very poor. And therefore, the old talk level is very high, and the conviction level is very low. And that gap, there's a huge gap there, and that, I think, promotes the cynicism in the society that you're talking about, because people don't have confidence, because there's all kind of, it doesn't matter which government it is, you know. You could have another government tomorrow. It's corruption, corruption, corruption. They'll keep talking, but there's no strike rate. There's no strike rate on conviction.
Have we become so accustomed to corruption that it's part of our culture?
Well, it has become a convenient tool to remove governments from office. It was used successfully in the case of the Pandey regime by persons inside the government. It was used successfully against the Manning regime by persons inside the government, inside the PNM. So that sometimes you get the revolution coming from inside the party itself to bring the government down. And some may argue that is an act of leadership, to go against your own party, to bring your leader down and cast you into opposition. So it has happened on both sides.
Right, yes,
I'm trying to make it clear. It has happened on both sides. So that it may not necessarily be a crisis of leadership that we're dealing with, because there are leaders who have done things that have been game-changing, effectively. But in this instance, I think that we really have a systemic issue that has to be addressed.
A systemic issue. Have we become so accustomed to leaders doing as they want, taking abuse of power and corruption? Dr. Mangal, your closing comments.
Yes, I think we do have a crisis in terms of moving our systems forward. And that takes real leadership. That takes genuine commitment, and that takes people looking forward in a way that we've never done before. We have no business being in the situation that we are currently in, with a GDP per capita of over US $20,000. We have no business being in this situation, but we need to have commitment, committed leadership, and we need to have very supportive systems that work to get forward.
Systems that work. David, you have the final word this morning.
Yeah, well, in every single community in this society, in every part of the country, there are social groups, neighborhoods, residents, organizations that do have leaders. And I think if those leadership, those leaders as individuals can be properly connected and empowered to some degree with some resources that they can redirect into their communities to make them better places, I think we can rely on or depend on the broad spread of individual leaders across the nation, as opposed to the kind of cultism that we're forced into into having to join or support a political party or become part of a village council or a support group. I think too many people have recognized flaws in the political system, but yet still feel that they are obligated to become part of it, or else they will starve. And I've never laughed so much than I did yesterday when I heard a medical doctor saying, well, Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, is a eater food society.
I think everyone has adopted that too, no.
But then he said, that's the problem. Everyone really has to go on a diet. So I think we need to withdraw ourselves from being forced into party politics and recognize that there's power and organization in community movements.
Are you confident the next generation will be better?
I think once we take the actions that we know we have to take, the next generation will be better. From the schools, and I say primarily the education institutions, we have a huge role to play.
You have the final word this morning, Dr. Kani.
I have boundless faith in our destiny.
Oh, that is the boundless faith in our destiny. Oh, maybe I'm a little skeptical myself. I'm Haber Ramsden. Now take a very short break. Don't forget it's Friday, so it's time to delve into the world of sport. And when we come back, Olympic gold medalist Keyshawn Walcott. He is the hottest thing in the country, and we'll find out why. Stay with us.
And of course, what I'm holding in my hand is the case that contains. I am. You know, I've never been this close to a gold medal, an Olympic gold medal before, and this is Keyshawn's as displayed in his official Olympic 2012 case. I'm a bit afraid to take it out. I don't want any mishaps, but on set with us this morning, Keyshawn Walcott, our very own and most recent Olympic gold medalist, joining him as well his manager Sean Roach, who's been here with us a couple times before in this capacity, of course. Good morning, gentlemen, and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
Now, let's get right into it. Keyshawn, the questions about London, about winning that gold medal have been coming in over and over again. But since then, let's get a little bit of perspective as to your own feeling on your achievement, what has come since then. I don't want to once again pose the question, how has your life changed? We know the answer to that, but what are you looking forward to in the months and perhaps years to come?
Oh, well, the feeling's great. United just won the second gold medal for the country. But right now, I'm just concentrating on getting some rest, recuperating, get my body back up to strength where it was earlier to get prepared for the next season.
Have you had a chance to hold or even throw a javelin since London?
Oh, well, I don't really want to hold one right now.
What has it been like since returning home? Obviously, it's been a whirlwind from since your landing to now. What has it been like? How much has your life changed?
No, my life hasn't changed that much in terms of everything. Just mostly free time. So I've been really busy all over the place. Sometimes just hardly getting sleep.
You seem to be a very shy young man. I'm not really too big on the spotlight and whatnot. How have you adjusted to that aspect of it? You're now famous. Everybody wants to get a piece of Keyshawn Walcott. How have you adjusted to that?
The adjustment has been going pretty good so far. I've been working with some people trying to come out in terms of talk more and just really work at it more.
Sean, as manager, what kind of role do you play with that? Ensuring that the athlete is not just developed on the field and in his sport, in his trade, but his all-round personality is also developed. With all the attention that he's getting now, he needs to be warm to the media, warm to the public. How much of a role do you and your company play?
Well, Jesse, this hit us a little bit earlier than we thought, But what we're trying to do now is just fill in the gaps, So now he's off the field for a little bit, so we're working on things like public speaking and, getting a little bit more media friendly. Not too much, because I know sometimes the media can
be your best friend and your best enemy at the same time.
Exactly. Right, but we're looking at the other areas of his life and how we're going to develop that, to match his success.
When you came back, now Sean has obviously been with you through every element coming home. You presented your mother with the flowers. When you initially won that medal and you realized that one was next to your name and the gold was yours, what was the first thing that came to your mind?
That's